You gotta check out the upcoming album Space City Boys. You don't want to miss out.
We'll be slaves. White bitch, you behave. Die. Jewish won't be saved. Die. I just read the page. Got my new Bible to see if you up. Business, we signing you up. We gon' get busy to see if you tough. To sending you ran out of luck. Got my new Bible to see if you up. Business, we signing you up. We gon' get busy to see if you tough. To sending you ran out of luck.
Spend on the block on no more eating. Reading the scripture like I'm even Steven. Praises to God, you better believe him. Walk up a ball from Paget to Legion. Go catch a football like my name is
TikTok. Flyest tassels in the community. Keep them laws.
PTE, Big G, PTE, Big G, and I'm the priest.
All right, first and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God Yahweh by Hashem Yahawashi, right? And that's all praise to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly knows as Jesus, right? This is the Genesis, Texas chapter, coming to you live from Fort Worth, Texas, out here in DFW, man. I'm joining my brothers. Y'all go ahead and introduce yourself.
Shalom, shalom. I go by Taziathon or Taz EDK, right? All praises to the Most High, right? Soldier Taz, Salakia, right? And on to the next brother.
Shalom. This is brother Soldier Shakat out in Austin, Texas. All praise to the Most High, man. Let's get it.
Come on. You can see, man, we all over the nation. We all over Texas, man. If you want to come join the work, man, hit us in the email in the description, right? Out here putting in where you got to put your brick in, right? What's that EDK stand for, man? Let them know what that stands for.
Hey, that's that Edomite killer, right?
Man,
and you know what? It's our focus, man. We focused on our people and bringing them to the light, right? If the heathen, right, who often rages, decides that they want to come up for smoke, we have something for them too, right? And that's where that name goes into EDK.
All praises, man. We dedicate, like you said, we dedicating this message specifically for our people, but you might just catch a stray or two, so you never know, right? But this is this topic is on redemption, right? So this is obviously dealing with our people, because who else needs to be redeemed, right? Which is an interesting word, right? Because to be redeemed means you was a part of something to begin with, right?
Exactly.
You can't be redeemed to something that you weren't promised, right, or a part of to begin with. So just even dealing with the word itself, let alone the usage, right, that we're going to be reading about, we can see that this is for a specific group of people. And if not us, who is it, right? Who else fits what we're about to read, right? So this is a common passage we're going to get started with and center this lesson around, right? And then we're going to go into some prophecy, deal with some New Testament as well, obviously, and then we're going to get into it, man. Let's deal with this topic. Let's, you know how we do it. Let's go ahead. If someone could read for me, starting at verse 1 and go down to verse 15.
Con, I'll jump in. This is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 1, right? And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth.
Right. So as you can see, before we go down to verse 15, right, if you were only to listen to the Lord that is your God, right, do what he commands, you're going to be above, right? We just had a video come out about Christians just refusing to accept that God has a chosen people, right? We're fighting constantly throughout our history here in the Americas to be equal to, right, when we've only been treated as less than, right? Imagine fighting to be equal to someone that God said inherently, because of what he chose, that you're above them, right? Let's go down to 15.
And real quick, right? This is the only book, right? This is the only history book. This is the only so-called religious text that everybody in the world tries to take and make it universal, right? You don't see people going to the teachings of Buddha and saying this is for everybody. Buddha came for everybody, right? Everybody should follow this, right? That it doesn't. This is the only book where everybody is like, well, this book was written to everybody, even though there's clear indications that it wasn't. All right, and I'll jump to verse 15.
Con.
All right, this is 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Right, con, and we're not gonna read all the curses, right? And we don't ever even do that on the street. There's no point. You can see where how all of these curses apply to a particular, group of people. But we're gonna highlight the main ones that I know our people will, Lord willing, understand and resonate with them, right? And that in more recent time we can see that we've been through as a nation, right? But as you can see right here, going at 15, this is the opposite of what we read, right? This is the consequences of disobedience, right? So when you disobey God, this is what's going to happen to a particular group of people. You don't see the whole world going through these curses, right? Because the Christian churches teaches you that you don't have to keep the laws of God, but the church is very much not cursed, right? It will be cursed. It's damned for what they're teaching. It will be, but they don't suffer these curses that we read out, right? Nor do we see this on nations, not just a religion, on a nation of people besides, the Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and highlight a few. We're going to jump down to verse 25.
Okay. This is verse 25. And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Right. So primarily what I'm going to highlight here in the curses is the scattering, right? Because we're dealing with redemption. So yes, we're going to go into other things we see us go through in our communities, but we're going to primarily deal with the fact that these curses from disobeying, it's reiterated throughout these verses here that you've like 50 plus verses showing that you're going to be scattered into all kingdoms, into all the places on the earth, right? So let's go down to verse 29, read down to 33.
Okay. This is verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
Gone. So before you go on, so as you can see, right, it says no man shall save you. I'm just highlighting a few key words here, right? Because we're going to get to a certain point in this verse where it says that no one's going to, buy you. And silly people like to read that down there in verse 68, like, oh, you're going to be trying to sell yourself, but no one's going to buy you. There's nowhere in history you can show where people tried to sell themselves as slaves and people refuse free labor. Like, come on now, let's have some common sense when we're reading the scriptures, right? And this is just another reiteration, again, in the same chapter, in the same context about the curses, that no one's going to save you, right? We have many people who have tried to save us out of this oppression, and they've all failed, right? Keep going.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Right. So who else is, and throughout history, through servitude, right, had a wife? And I know obviously we see in modern time that it's commonplace here in America, at least how popular it is in even in our culture and in our music, about sleeping with another man's wife, just wickedness all around, right? But this is beyond that, is also talking about during the time of our captivity as slaves, how master can just come creep up in that bedroom and come take your wife, and you would be left powerless, right, in front of your children, in front of her. Now think about how on a psychological level, as a nation of people, what that does to us, right? As a man being put in that position, you can't defend your family that you have the God-given responsibility to protect, but you're left powerless, right? If you try to fight back, you'll be dead, and they might be dead too, right? And so you have a very difficult choice to make, right? So when we read about these curses, you got to really just put them to life, right? Now, I've always read the Bible, like, these are my people, right?
Mhm.
I didn't personally have that image of, white Jesus, right, Caesar Borgia in my head, because that just wasn't personally how I was raised. That doesn't mean I was raised in the truth, though. Just because I had that one thing that I didn't, have in my perception of this. But you can clearly read this, right, when you're reading this in the Exodus, right, and watching movies like Roots or whatever or what have you, right, that this is our people and what happened to us. This is a very real thing. There's nothing you can do when he decides that he wants what's yours, what God gave to you. He can just come in and take, right? And then
Con.
you got anything you want to add on that?
I got a precept for you real quick. All right. This is Ezekiel 16 and 25. Right, because Israel played the harlot, right? We played the harlot, and so that's the same thing that our women are doing, right? It's the same thing we do, right? As men, we continue that cycle of being the harlot. So this is Ezekiel 16 and 25. Thou hast built thy high place at every head of every way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, and hast opened thy feet to everyone that passeth by, and multiplied thy whoredoms. Right. So just like we multiplied our whoredoms, right, it shouldn't surprise us that we should betroth a wife and another man shall lie with her. Right. It's a part of that curse for us playing the part of a harlot, for us multiplying our whoredoms in idolatry. Right now, our wives are doing the same thing.
Fine. No, man, that's perfect right there. We see the curses played out, and as we're going to continue to read, you'll see that they're cyclical, right? So we went through them at various points in our history. So when you get to the so-called African American Negro man now, it's not a surprise that they're still suffering those same things because of these curses, right? It's a continuous sign on his people forever, right?
Con.
So let's keep going on that. I think we're in verse 31 now.
Con 31. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. And thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Right. And it's, man, dealing with the ox, man. If you look into something called the Great Buffalo Slaughter, right, when they were trying to because again, it's not just about the African American man or the Negro. We can't forget about our Northern Kingdom brothers, right? So when you look at the craftiness, right, that Esau had when they came over here over the waters, right? For one, they took them on boats as well and took them back to Europe, right? So they suffered those same curses. But they were a mighty, warrior people. Most of them didn't give up easily, right? So they knew to starve them out. They literally slaughtered thousands of buffalo and bragged about it. And they had a pile of bones, right? And they probably didn't even use most of those buffalo for anything. They just literally did it to starve them out.
To the actual practices set out to achieve colonial goals. And these practices are brutal processes of subjugation, dispossession, and expropriation of territories and peoples in the name of expansion, imperial reach, and profit. Christopher Columbus sent around 550 enslaved indigenous peoples from the Americas to Europe as some of the first commodities shipped back with the purpose of putting them on the market to be sold as laborers in the Mediterranean. Eventually, other European powers, including the Dutch, French, English, and Portuguese, began participating in this trade, trafficking unwilling peoples as laboring bodies. Portugal, and eventually England, would come to dominate the trafficking of Africans for the purpose of this new form of enslavement. Spain and its conquistadores, Spanish for conquerors, were early beneficiaries of their enslavement of indigenous peoples in the Americas. Spain soon implemented a labor system called encomienda in their colonies in the Americas and in the Philippines. Encomienda derives from the Spanish encomendar, which roughly translates as to entrust or to commend. The system was intended to redefine the relationship between settlers and the captive native laborers who were to be treated as new Spanish subjects. This system would civilize new subjects in a twisted attempt at benevolence and was thought to simultaneously quell potential uprisings from newly empowered and too distant colonial settlers.
It wasn't like they did it to feed their colonies or to feed their people, right? Or they were just trying to be a peaceful colony that just landed over here, like, you know, no, they literally were dealing with deceit with them, right? And then when they couldn't, you know, defeat them, they starved them out. They gave them diseases. So those same curses that we read about here, we can't forget about how it applies to not just the Negro man, right, but also to the quote unquote Native American, right?
Reservation.
Damnation.
Bleak.
Oppression.
Small.
Sick. You know, there's alcoholism, there's abuse, there's domestic violence, there's a lot of things that go on a reservation that really goes overlooked.
Just a compromise. It was an agreement a forced agreement probably, that Native Americans were put kind of out of the way, out of sight.
Prison. It's like where we're trapped.
I think it's the most common misconception about reservations.
That there's some kind of abundance, that natives are happy, that they're caring for each other, that they live in some ancient way.
Ooh, sad.
Poor.
A concentration camp. Reservations were made to isolate Indian people in hope that we would die off.
Depressing.
Unfair, because they're not as good as other lands. They're the land that the government and people don't want.
Trapped. It wasn't great farmland, it wasn't great homeland, and so it kind of feels like a place off to the side.
Even to this day, the natives are fighting for rights to keep the little what they have.
There are no good reservations. Here's your reservation. You can't go across that boundary. This is your reservation. And I grew up on a Navajo reservation, and we're one of the few lucky people that got to remain where our homelands are. But there are other reservations where people were forced there, and they can't fend for themselves like they used to do in the old days. You can't hunt anymore, you can't fish anymore, because you're just stuck on a reservation on these substandard housing, living in third world country conditions. Youths killing themselves because there's no future, there's no hope. That's a reservation to me.
Yeah, literally starved out their food supply.
Man.
Right. All right. This is you want me to go on to 32?
Yeah, go on 32 and then 33.
Okay, yeah. Thy sons, verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
Right. And this man, I'm trying not to say too much because I know this is going on YouTube, but it's like, come on now. You can see who it is and who it's not, rather, right? Because it says there shall be no might in thy hand. Who has the strongest might and control and influence on the earth, right? The same quote unquote people that we think wrote this Bible, or who these curses are pertaining to. But when you just keep reading it, it's more and more evident not just who this is, but who this isn't, right? We're literally proving both at the same time, right? Man.
Verse 33, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed away.
Right. Yeah, always crushed, right? We're gonna continue on these curses, but I was saving this for later, but now I gotta go ahead and pull it up because, right, like I said, some people just gonna catch some strays, right? So specifically the children of Edom, right? I'm gonna read this real quick. So in Obadiah chapter, obviously it's only one chapter, verses 3-6, right? The pride of thine heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground, right? They think that no one can mess with them. No one can bring them down. Just the pride of these people. We see it week in and week out when we're at camp, right? They think that what we're saying is just madness. There's no way that this place is going to fall, right?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters. And we already know that God blessed America, because he gave us the greatest fighting force this world has ever seen.
You will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
That.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what I'm not
You're
dictating.
in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From
yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I
You don't
was
have
in
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not
cards.
playing
But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think
You're
you-
gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think
gambling
about?
with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
But it's all right. We'll keep going. Thou that dwellest thyself, that exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. So no matter how high up you think you are, you're gonna get pulled down, right? If these came to thee, here's the key point of what we're just reading, right? Talking about those, what they did with the buffalo, right? If these came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How were the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Right. So what this is saying is that most, robbers, right, that, even within our Torah law, right, we wouldn't say that someone that stole is worthy of death, right? If one of our people were caught stealing, you give it back plus 20%, you repent, and Lord willing, stop being a thief, right? But what Esau's a different type of thief, right? When he wants some land or he wants something from you, he goes above and beyond what you think you need, right? What someone would really just need, right? Like I said, if they were just coming over here to just set up colonies, right, and to live peaceably, I guarantee it wouldn't be no problems if they came over in that way, right? Our people are naturally such a loving people that we try to teach you how to tend to the land that you're now in, right?
Yeah.
We try to help you. So instead of, doing that, right, and accepting the help, and then we negotiating some sort of land agreement, right? And this is really what you tried to do, but you broke every agreement you made, right?
Man.
So instead of just stealing what they needed, they starved people out, right? They go above and beyond more than what is necessary. Even when you just, even in matters of war, they go above and beyond what they should be doing.
Exactly.
But it's just the wickedness, man. But like I said, they're the residue of the heathen. So hey, let's get back to to our people, and let's see who these apply to, right? But we can see clearly who this doesn't apply to.
Exactly.
Let's read 36 and 37.
This is Deuteronomy 28 and 36. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, into a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
Mm.
And
Keep
thou
going.
shalt be and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee.
Right. So again, in 37, you can see as far as like who else has more proverbs and bywords on them, right? We're so-called Negroes, niggers, niggas, spics, all sorts of words they just come up with. We're so-called black, right? But my 4-year-old son for the last few years could tell you that if I point at his skin and ask him what color is that, he's gonna say brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he has more common sense than these people that think they have the right to go around labeling people, right?
Con,
So my 2, 3, and 4-year-old son, even back then, he could tell you for the last few years what a brown or a black person looks like. And there's no nation or no people that's literally black, right?
con,
So
con,
it's a damn shame, right? But as you can see, the highlight there again is that he will lead us among all the nations, right? And we're going to be labeled as proverbs and bywords. And again, you already know what these other gods are, right? Wood and stone, the two
con.
primarily largest religions, the largest, the widest gates, if you will, right? Christianity and Islam, right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
we see our people falling into primarily now, even today. Who we got that Muslim man across from us when we at camp, right? He wants to, it just pisses me off every time I look at it. What? Don't talk to my people. I don't even want to see you trying to give them your flyer or nothing that, bro.
Con,
So
con,
we try to stop them. We do what we can, right, to get our people out of idolatry. Both of them, Christianity and Islam.
con, precept, right?
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
those idols belong to other nations. So let's see. This is Psalms 135 and 15.
Let me pull it up.
Con.
There you go. Go ahead.
The idols of the heathen are silver and gold, the works of men's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Neither is there any breath in their mouths. They that make them are like unto them, right? Blind and dumb, right? Because these idols can't speak, they can't see, right? And there's no breath in their mouths, right? And these idols, they belong to, like verse 15 says, the idols of the heathen. These are the heathen's idols. Those are their gods, right? Like the brother said, are the widest gates, Christianity and Islam, right? That stone that they worship, right? That wooden cross that's raised up in every Christian church, right? These are idols that are leading our people astray.
Gone. Like I said, the widest gates, right? We're trying to get into that narrow gate, right? We might be, quote unquote, I see some statistics say the fastest growing religion, but we're far from being the biggest, right? We see who are, in control of these wide gates, right?
Con, right. I got a statistic for that too, right? It's according to a survey from a group called Pew Research, right?
Mm-hmm.
They found that 78% of Black Americans, right, adults have a religious affiliation, right? And 75% of those African American adults identify or have identified as Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black Americans are 97% of Black American adults believe in just in general in a God or a higher power, right? So we are one of
Mm-hmm.
the most spiritual people, but we are also the most devoid of what is actually spiritual according to the Bible, which is the law.
Con, all praises, powerful precept, powerful stat, man. Let's get back to Deuteronomy 28. Let's get 41 and then
Con,
43 down to 51.
con. Okay, this is 41, right? This is Deuteronomy 28 and 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Like I said, we don't have control over ourselves, our spouse, our children, right? Children ripped from us. We see that today constantly. Who's I'm gonna let you speak to this, right? Who do you see as the basically having the biggest consequences, right, of the foster care system as far as children getting ripped from their family? Man, I'm gonna let you speak to that.
Yeah, that's you, man. You see, mainly the majority is blacks and so-called Mexicans or so-called Hispanics, right? And Native Americans, right? You see them as the largest groups that are in foster cares and group homes and juvenile halls, right? And placements. These are the placements are very similar to juvenile halls, right? A lot of kids that can't make it in these placements and can't make it in group homes, right? Where what's crazy is they rip them from their families, and then there's a higher rate of abuse in group homes and in foster homes, right? And so then they're either sent off to placements, which are just as bad as juvenile hall or juvenile hall, right? And then it feeds them right into the prison industrial complex, feeds them right into the next step of these things is prison, is jail, is homelessness.
It's just it's a pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And man, I hadn't even showed y'all yet because I just got this new sign built. And you would think on one of the pictures, one of them is an actual slave cotton picking depiction, right? But there's another picture I have on the poster, right? That's actually from sharecropping. And when you look into sharecropping, you think that that's, oh, they had jobs. No, when they got into sharecropping, they really the way they were able to even get into that business, right? What was through debt, right? So a lot of them still had a lot of debt as they're working for generations to pay this stuff off. So you see this even, and again, we act like this is that long ago, right? This is like 150, 170, or so years ago now at this point. That's not that long ago, right?
It's not.
My great grandfather and great grandparents, right, were born in the 19 teens in the 1920s. That's not that long post slavery, right? Now we're very educated, intuitive, and overcoming people, right? But that doesn't mean that it was just a way that anyone should have had to live, right? It's really degrading when you see what we had to go through to get to where we are now.
Gone.
All right,
I'm gonna
let's
jump
go to 43 down to
43.
51.
Gone. This is 28 and 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And thou shalt be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness, with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he hath destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar. From one end of the earth, as swift as the eagle, flieth a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, and until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave the Salakia, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of the sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until the high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou treadest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou
Right.
shalt.
No, you good right there.
Gone.
So, right, because man, it's just like you wanna stop that, but it's just like, man, as you just reading it and you just listening to it, it's like, how do you not, clearly see who this people are, right? You may have a point and try to say some of this is historic if we don't see that clearly this is a sign for a wonder and upon thy seed forever, right? If it wasn't for that verse, you might have a point, right? But we can see that this is, his judgment is like a ring, right? So we see that this is a sign on his people forever, right? We can't escape it until the time of redemption is come, right? And Lord willing, that is drawing nigh, right? But as you can see, just to highlight a few things here, who do we see these curses come upon that really overtook us and destroy us, right? When you look at the average Negro man today, right, specifically, and how it says Judah is a lion's whelp, right? Who will rouse them up? Because we've been destroyed the most, right? We see some of our brothers down there in the Caribbeans. Those, man, you can't really say who had it worse or better or not, but because that doesn't really matter. The point is, you can see who got beat down to the point where they can't even they scared to raise their head up. They scared to rouse up, right? But we still are the most sought after tribe, right? The tribe of Judah. So you see that influence everywhere, but you also see that that spirit has really been beaten out of them. That we don't have anybody in the political realm, right? The fight for whether we're going to try to be equal or we're going to establish our own thing is over, right? The fight to be equal, that side of our people won. That's all our people want. That's literally, you want anything more than that, you're doing too much. Keep your voice down. Don't talk. Don't you're talking too loud. Don't upset massa. I got a good job. Leave it alone.
And it's crazy because we fought and we fought and we fought, right? And statistically, right, we still, even us in Mexicans combined, are still like, we only make up less than 20% of U.S. households, and then the wealth is like 1/10 of white households, right? So the average savings, I think it was between $20,000 and $30,000, right? And that's the medium wealth, right? The medium wealth was between $20,000 and $30,000, right? And that was for our people, right? And that's 1/10 of their wealth. So even for this equality that we fought for, we've still been, right, the stranger among us has still been way higher than us financially, right? And in all aspects, right?
Yeah, they come in our neighborhoods. They sell to us all of this destructive things to us, right? They you try to have a clothing business. They own the cotton mills, right? They own all the raw material, right? They own the bank that your money's in. You'll never get out of those other people being ahead of us, right? They're so far ahead of us. There's no catching up, right? I don't care how many you want to point out. Oh, you have a Kanye, a Jay-Z. So what? These are entertainers, right? You have a few business people that are successful, but even if what the brother say, right? Even if you rich, right? You just a nigga in the coop. You see what I'm saying? Like it don't really change nothing for one, we're looking at the condition of our people, not just the few well-to-do Negroes, right? Y'all settle for that, and y'all think that means that there's nothing else to fight for, right? We have to go out here week in and week out to fight for an everlasting righteousness that we want to come, right? If we want to overcome these curses, not just as an individual, right? On at least on maybe you might escape a few of these curses, but as a group of people, you see who these fell upon, right? Like when you look up yoke of iron, as we're reading about, there's only one group of people that you'll see in those results, right? That you see historically really suffering this on that level, right? There's the word diaspora was created to describe, right, the movement of the quote unquote Jews. But now in modern times, you can see the quote unquote movement of the African American and the native diaspora. We're in every part of the world.
And that's how we further know that this is all that our plight, right? Our current predicament, our circumstances, what we've gone through in the past, is all divine, right? It's all because of our disobedience, right? It would be coincidental if it was just one of these curses, but it's like literally all of these curses. And then there are systems in play that keep them on us. So like you said, one person might be able to make it out, but then the home values are depressed in black and brown neighborhoods, so that the houses have and the area around the houses have lower values, right? Like the brother said, the interest rates are higher for us on your mortgages, on borrowing, right? So that you are charged higher, right? Our the projects in themselves were developed to keep us in the generational housing communities, right? And then those projects became a prison in themselves of violence, right? And repetitive And it goes into that cycle again of violence, of adultery, of hating oneself, right? That evil eye towards our brothers, right? All of these things that kept playing a part into the curses that continue to keep us held down. Could you grab a verse for me? Grab Lamentations 4:19.
Got you. 4:19. Those things.
Right, and this goes into what he's talking about, right, with the curse about the eagles, right?
Con, I'll read it for you. You want me to read down to 22, or you want to just read that verse?
Yeah, you can read down to 22. Con.
Okay, gotcha. So this is Lamentations chapter 4 and verse 19. Our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. The breath of our nostrils, the anointed of the Lord, was taken in their pits, of whom we said, under his shadow we shall live among the heathen. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins.
Right. So and what we're dealing with right now is how our persecutors are swifter than the eagle. Eventually, the curse is going to be put onto them, and we see them drunk in their own pride right now. Right, we see exactly who it's talking about, and it's crazy because with every Idumean civilization has used the eagle as a symbol somehow for them, right? Because they love the way that the eagle hunts, right? So Rome used the eagle to represent invincibility, right? They had a special unit or a special soldier called the eagle bearer, right? Or in the Greek, it's or Roman, it's aqua lefari. Might have butchered that word, but I don't care, right? But aqua lefari, right? These Roman soldiers carried a eagle, right, in a battle on top of a staff, right, a carved eagle. And as long as that person supposedly stayed alive during the battle, it would signify that they were going to win, right? So for them, it was a symbol of invincibility, right? All of our enemies, all of our oppressors, in some way, have used the eagle as a symbol, right, in their empires, right? But again, like it says that he was swifter than the eagle, right? And they pursued us, and they were able to put us into captivity, right? But to continue.
Real quick, Alam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we go, I just wanted to say, like, if somebody's watching this video and doesn't believe that blacks and Hispanic people are Israelites, like to believe that if you think like the Ish people are actually God's people, you gotta literally just throw away all of Deuteronomy, like
That's
all
right.
of Deuteronomy 28. You'd have to just throw it away because, like it says, whenever you're speaking about for like is for a sign, like all these curses shall be for a sign and a wonder.
That's right.
Right. So if you look at like what is a sign, right? So if I'm driving down the road and you literally all you got to do is look up and you'll see a whole bunch of signs. If there's a McDonald's, there's a sign that says McDonald's, you know if you go there, that's McDonald's. That's where the McDonald's is going to be. If you go down the street and there's a Starbucks, you know there's a Starbucks right there, right? So if you're reading all these curses and you look at them, regardless of what you could do all the DNA tests you want. You could sit there and listen to all the Ish people all you want on what they say and the history and the stuff that happened to them. But if you read Deuteronomy and you honestly go through all this stuff, you cannot sit here and read all this and say that any of this stuff in like as a math to the majority happened to Jewish people, right? The only people that all this stuff happened to is Black and Hispanic people, regardless of like what time period in history you look at. All this stuff did not happen to any white people, to other Africans. All this stuff only happened to Blacks and Hispanic people.
That's right.
You literally you cannot like honestly read this stuff and tell me that this stuff happened to them.
That's right. Bring it out, brother. No, you good. That's mighty. Look,
I'm sitting there like listening. I'm like, damn, bro. Like all the stuff you're going through. How can you look at this and say that this is any other group of people? It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, I don't know.
That's why they ignore it.
It's like
that's
you got to
just ignore this chapter.
It's like, especially with Christianity, bro. It's like you just got to turn your mind off and just sit there and just nod your head and then be like, "Yep," but I'm still gonna believe this anyways. Like, you got to throw away everything that you're saying.
Bro, you have to. You got to throw away a lot of chapters that we bring out, quite frankly, if you want to believe the other narrative. Remember, I had that conversation with the brother Nick for like 3 hours. Bro tried to tell me these curses already happened in the wilderness. I said they got scattered to all nations in the wilderness.
Man,
There's no like, bro, you're playing
He
with my
said that?
intelligence. You're playing with my intelligence right now. You got to be.
let's
He said
go.
that. I haven't even posted that video, man. That might have to come out soon because
That's
I'm gonna have to
crazy.
put it in increments because it was 3 hours, bro. It was madness. And then I told you it was 1v20. It was just me versus a bunch of Christian
Yeah,
commentary.
Christian
And I'm
commentators.
and I'm just chopping it all up with the sword. I don't need nothing but the Bible. But it was getting bad, man. But look, let's look at that word there, right? It shall be a sign, right? It's literally a distinguishing mark or a banner, right? These are the usages. Look at the definition: a signal, a flag, a beacon, a monument, an omen, right? Or a prodigy evidence, right? It's literally evidence for who the children of Israel are, man. That's just that's I don't even know how else to say it, man.
It's like
It's telling you.
it's telling you, like, listen, it's like if you want to know who these people are, read this. This will tell you right here. Because it's like if you're walking down the street and you got a big ass flag and I'm carrying a flag, you're gonna know what I'm there for because you're gonna just look at the flag. If you go down the street and there's a sign hanging up, like I said, with the McDonald's, if there's a McDonald's sign, it's clearly telling you this is a McDonald's. There's no arguing, there's no questioning it. It's literally telling you exactly what it is.
And this we could stay in the pocket of Deuteronomy 28 and just prove who the Israelites are, right? But like you said, you'd have to throw this away, right? Like the only way, and they still wouldn't stand a chance. The only way a Christian would stand a chance when they try to come up and debate doctrine is when we have hands behind our back, feet tied up, and we just gotta headbutt you all the whole time. We gotta just fight. We fighting with our head. The problem is they got arms, they got legs, but they don't have a head. That's really their problem. They don't have a brain.
Right.
So that's why we winning with our head, because we actually have one and we using it, right? But I'm sitting there headbutting you with scriptures and you're not picking up on what's happening, right? So it just doesn't make sense. Like I said, you wouldn't need but just a little bit of sense to figure this out, right? But it's all right though, because when I'm reading it, and I tell my rib this all the time. When we're dealing with people that are in our family or friends that just don't get it, it's like, look, at the end of the day, it has to be divine, because why is it making so much more clear sense to us now at this point in our lives? And it didn't make sense to us in the past, right? Or we didn't read it to get it, right? Or when we're reading to people now, it's like, why doesn't it click for you? Like, why? Like, I just don't understand. But guess what? Some vessels are made for destruction, and that's just the way he ordained it. And there's nothing I can do but just try to get the message out to my people. So that's what we're doing here. But we're gonna continue on. Let's get verse 54 and 56.
This is Deuteronomy 28 and 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
Right. Go on.
So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left in him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and towards her son, and towards her daughter.
Right, so as you can see, right, this is dealing with that relationship that we have with our fellow Israelite man, right? We always go into First John 5 and 2 and 3, right? Showing what is the love of God. That's keeping the commandments. How you show you love each other. It's how you show you love God, right? This is the opposite, right? So this is literally the opposite of that. It's letting you know that because of how we disobeyed, the commandments, we're going to literally be showing how much we don't love each other and how much we don't love God. Right, because we're not keeping the commandments. It's just literally a byproduct of that. So that it tells you how delicate we treated our our women in our society, right? How tender they were to us, but they're going to literally have an evil eye towards their children, and then the father is going to have an evil eye towards his wife and to his kids, in that he's going to leave them. We don't see the amount of absent fathers in any other community, right? I'm blessed to have had mine, but it's almost as if no matter where I moved to, because I moved around quite a bit as a child, right? That on average, I may have been one of, if not the only person on that street or in the surrounding, I lived in apartments, right? That had their father, right? It was a rarity, right? That I joined this, moved over there, and I was the only one with my dad in the house, right? That's a curse, right? I shouldn't be that much of a unique person to say that.
Con.
All right, let's go down to, let's just read 64 and 68, then we're going to go to some other precepts.
Con, this is verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there shalt thou serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy father have known, even wood and stone.
Right. Again, that's just another verse talking about, we're going to be scattered into among all people, right? From one end of the earth to another, right? Didn't say, oh, you'll just be scattered to this place. No, it literally says all nations. Just keep that in mind, right? Keep going.
Con, let me get one precept in there. Let's grab Leviticus 26 and 33.
Con, powerful. 26 and 33. All right, I got you. And it says, I will scatter you among the heathen and will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate and your cities waste.
Right, we see that now, right? We've been scattered out of our land, right? We're amongst the heathen, right? And then our cities are right. So what the people that are there in the land now, where they say that the temple was, right, with these incorrect locations, right? If you look at where are the actual locations of these historical biblical places were, they're desolate. They're deserts right now, right? No one lives in these these areas. You see these ruins of the old temple, right? There, it's everything around it is desolate. Nothing grows, right? So our cities are still laid waste, right? They're taking up parts of our land, right? But those cities where where that temple was laid waste. All right. So we see this now. Come.
All right. And it's just another mirroring chapter there for those that don't know. We always read Deuteronomy 28. I'm gonna start bringing out Leviticus 26 more because it's a mirroring chapter that goes into the same thing, the blessings, the curses, and even goes into mirroring some of Deuteronomy 30. So this chapter needs to get brought out more for sure.
Colin, all praises.
All right, let's go and get verse 68.
Colin, this is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
My people were captured, kidnapped, bound and packed like cargo on ships heading across the ocean. Others jumped from this door of no return, pulled under the water by the weight of their chains.
They literally put up gangplank.
Exactly. It's the door of the voyage without return. So that's the last contact, really, with Africa.
Right. And this is one of the most twisted scriptures that I've seen Christians try to twist, as if that just changes everything we read before verse 68. Right. I don't need verse 68 to make my point, but I know it's the most popular verse. But a lot of people, Israelites alike, break this down wrong. Let's just go through here and highlight a few things and make this make sense. It does not say, for one, at the very end where it says you're going to be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. And I heard someone say, I'm going to put no names on it. It says, and no one shall buy you. That means you're going to sell yourselves and no one's going to buy you. You're going to be lower than a slave. I've heard people say that. I don't know how that makes sense. If you've been sold, that means someone bought you.
Man.
So this word right there is kone, right? Going into the word for redeem, right? And funny enough, we literally have a law of redemption, right, within the Torah. So we have this concept before you even get to Deuteronomy 28 to know that there was supposed to be someone that can redeem you when you get sold until your enemies, right? There's literally laws on this. So we're going to get the context of what was said prior to Deuteronomy 28. So that way we know what would have been in the minds of these Israelites who are hearing this verse, right? First, right here, and right, we're talking about going into Egypt again with ships. We know what was in the minds of an Israelite when they heard Egypt. Going into Egypt means servitude, right? We see here in Exodus 20:2, one of the should be the most famous chapters in the Bible, the 10 Commandments, right? It says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Here we go. Let's further define Egypt. Out of the house of bondage, right? So when you go back here, they're literally saying that you're going to go into bondage with ships. Look up slave ships, look up yoke of iron, put them together or put them separately. You're going to see us on slave ships, right? So we know who this is referring to. We just saw who this sign on his people are. This is included, right? These are the curses that were going to be a sign on his people. So again, we're going to be sold to our enemies, not our friends. We're going to be sold into all nations. So what does that mean? All nations are our enemies, period. You see, just prior, they were going to be sold and scattered among all people in verse 64. Then it says we're going to be sold to our enemies for bondmen and bondwomen in 68. If we're everywhere and where we're sold to is our enemies, that means everybody that's not us is an enemy.
But the single largest concentrations are going to be on the coast of Brazil, in the Caribbean basin, and in what today is the southern U.S. Those are the great concentrations. But you can go anywhere in the Americas before 1850 and find African slaves. Right? They're in the silver mines of Bolivia. They're mining silver in northern Mexico. They're doing everything conceivable, and they're engaged in every conceivable occupation. And everyone is complicit in this. There's this great book by John Thornton called Africa and Africans in the Making of the Atlantic World. And he basically says, look, Africans, whatever, I'll talk about that in a second, Africans are enslaving other Africans and selling them to Europeans, and all the Europeans involved, Muslims, Christians, Jews, you name it. Right? Everybody's involved in this. And the white kids in the class go like, oh, we're off the hook. I go, no, you're not off the hook. We're all in this. It's like, oh, whoa, it's not just us, huh? And it is astonishing. And there is no such thing as Africa, right? Africa is this name that some geographers in Europe have put on a map. What exists is just like the Americas. There are thousands of different kinds of people speaking different languages, of different ethnic backgrounds, of different cultural systems, different levels of technology and politics.
Enemy to God, enemy to us as a nation. It's 1 + 1 = 2. I'm not pulling this out my rear end. I didn't reach. I'm within 5 verses of each other, and you see that connection.
Allow me, you're wrong, bro. 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 = 1. That means 1 + 1 gotta equal 7 or something like that, you know.
Man, bro, I told you it's gonna be some strays getting caught, man. You know, Esau gonna catch some strays, the Trinity gonna catch a stray. Man, look, I just can't help ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But look, I thought I should have saw that coming. But look, right? As you can see, we're sold everywhere, and there are enemies, right? And we have to separate ourselves from our enemies, right? It only in the mind of the African American man or the Negro do you see that we should just be so forgiving to the people that enslaved us and took our women, took our children. We should just let bygones be bygones, right? Just move on, right? But you know, let's go into what this law of redemption means, because we got to get into the mind of the ancient Israelites and to know that they knew that Egypt is bondage and servitude. And this no man shall buy you. What is this going into, right? When you go into Leviticus 25, one of my favorite chapters.
47?
Yeah, 47 through, just get 47 to 49.
Got you. All right, this is Leviticus 25 and 47. And if a sojourner or stranger wax rich by thee, and thy brother that dwelleth by him wax poor, and sell himself unto the stranger or sojourner by thee, or to the stock of the stranger's family, after that he is sold, he may be redeemed again.
You said after he sold, he may what?
he may be redeemed again.
Con, keep going.
One of his brethren may redeem him. Either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him, or any that is nigh of kin unto him, of his family, may redeem him, or if he be able, he may redeem himself.
Con. So if he's able to, but what does the curse say? That no one's going to be able to redeem you. That's what this is saying, right? So no one's going to be able to buy you when you're sold to your enemies. Now, this sojourner and stranger, depending on the context and the Hebrew word used there, can sometimes be referring to an Israelite. This right here in particular is talking about a non-Israelite, right? It literally says, or the stock of the stranger's family, right? Or the sojourner or the stranger. This is adding extra emphasis on the fact that this is not your kin. This is not your right? And if somebody wants to challenge me on that, you can try to, and you're going to get your head knocked off. Disrespectfully, very much so, right? But after he is sold, he may be redeemed again. That's under normal circumstances, right? When we're in our land and maybe you're on hard times, right? And you're so desperate enough to go sell yourself to a heathen, right? You're supposed to have one of your closest kinsmen go redeem you, right? And just in the spirit of this, right, dealing with this, because we're about to get into who the Redeemer here is in just a moment. But while we're on that topic about it being like a kin, right? Let's go into the prophecy of the Messiah, right? Out in Deuteronomy 18:18, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I command him, right? So it's a commandment to believe in this prophet that shall come from among their people, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him, meaning your life, right? So it's going to be required for you to believe in this, in this prophet, right? That's going to be, coming from among your brethren, right? So when you go back to that Leviticus 25 on that law of redemption, right? And we see prophecies that God's going to send someone from among our brethren to, obey his words. And we're going to read later that he's going to be the Redeemer, right? We have to believe in him to be saved. All of this is connecting, right? And we see it, concept of redemption in the Torah. Y'all got anything on that?
No, go ahead, King.
All right, let's go ahead and pull up. We're gonna get more into that redemption. Let's get one more verse showing who the Israelites are. Let's go to, obviously a favorite here, Isaiah 42:22.
This is Isaiah 42:22.
Read down to 25.
But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, and the strength of battle, and it has set him on fire round about. Yet ye knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart.
So as you can see, we can see ultimately, right? You can say it both ways, right? That it was ultimately Yahweh that did this to us, right? Because he declared judgment on us already from the beginning once you disobey him. But it's our own undoing that we put ourselves in this position, right? So you can look at it from both perspectives, right? It depends on, how you want to say it at that time, right? But it's ultimately both the right answer, right? So these same people that need to be delivered are robbed and spoiled, snared in holes, and in prison houses. Who do you see in the prison houses the most?
Tonight's prime number is 5. Black people are 5 times more likely to be in prison than white ones. The findings by the Sentencing Project showed that in 12 states, more than half of the prison population is black. Leading the country with the highest rate of black inmates is Wisconsin, where only 6% of the entire population is black. But 1 in every 36 black people in the state are locked up. Here you can see the staggering racial disparities nationwide. Black people are incarcerated at a rate of 1,240 per 100,000 people, while white people are incarcerated at a rate of 261 per 100,000 people. The report also found Latin people are incarcerated at 1.3 times that of white people. So what can be done to fix this unjust justice system? The Sentencing Project recommends eliminating mandatory sentencing for all crimes, decriminalizing low-level drug offenses, and requiring racial impact statements to help eliminate racially biased laws and policies.
When you think about motherhood in particular, if we drill down even more, what does incarceration mean for Black mothers and for Black motherhood?
Well, a few things. And how I'd like to answer that question is first by turning attention to incarcerated women, right? Black women are incarcerated at double the rate of white women. And so when a Black woman is incarcerated, there is a domino effect. 80% of women in jail are mothers. And so that impact is rippling across communities. The other thing that we know is that women are, and particularly Black women, are showing up regularly for men and for people who we are connected to all of the time. But when we as Black women are incarcerated, there are fewer visits, and there is oftentimes no one to bail Black women out of jail.
Right? Therefore, pray. And again, this is the key word, right? Because we're dealing with redemption. None delivereth for a spoil, and none saith restore. Right? So we're looking for that final redemption. Right now, let's go to Ephesians 1 and verse 7.
Okay, Ephesians, I got it, 1 and 7.
Come
All
on.
right. It says, in whom we have redemption through his blood and forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace.
So as we can see here, right, again, dealing with this redemption that Paul is speaking about here in this instance, right, is through somebody's blood, right? Through forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. Where can we find, right, where we can see prophetically already declared in the word of God, right, before we even get to this point, because this is the verses that Paul and the other apostles had before we even get these letters, right? It had to have already been forespoken about who this redemption was for. It's the Israelites who we see that need that redemption that we read so thoroughly about already, right? And we can see who those group of people are today, right? So I'm gonna read this here in Isaiah 53. Grab for me Matthew 1 and 21 after this. I'll read this one. In Isaiah 53, verses 8 through 10, he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people, who are Isaiah's people, the Israelites, was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked, just showing where he died. He went to the grave like everyone else, and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth, right? Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. Imagine that. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, right? Whose sin? The sins of Israel, right? That's that transgression for his people. The law was only given to Israel. So who can sin, right? You see the Israelites sinning and suffering those consequences of those sins, right? Those same people that have a sign on their seed forever. That soul was making an offering for their sin. He says, he shall see his seed and he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand, right? So we see a continuation from prophecy to prophecy to now Paul is speaking about this here in Ephesians 7. You got that in Matthew?
Yes, sir. That was Matthew 1 and 21. Yes. This is Matthew 1 and 21. And he shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins.
Right. Con. So we see another witness here, Matthew, right, being a Levi for sure, right? No matter how he might have been under that Roman authority, right, with that role as a tax collector, right? Hated of his own people. This man knew the law. I have no doubt in my mind that he knew these prophecies and in these laws, right? He wrote his letters in his and his gospel letters a certain way, right? It would, Levi would perfectly know this lineage, as you see here earlier in the chapter, and know how important it is that he has to come from among his brethren, from a particular line of them, right?
Con.
And save his people from their sins, right? So he knew about this and he wrote it out for us to know that this has to be the Messiah that was prophesied to come, particularly and specifically for his people, right?
Con.
Let's run it up on. I got like a few more verses and I'll be done. Let's go to Isaiah 59 and
It's
20.
I got
Yeah.
you. This is Isaiah 59 and 20. Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon. Oh, is that the right one? Salakia.
No, it's 59 and
No,
20.
that's sorry, that was 60. This is 59 and 20. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord.
That's right. So this is another prophecy dealing with
Mm-hmm.
the Redeemer, right? We're dealing with our redemption after dealing with those curses and seeing what we need to be redeemed from, right? We
Mm-hmm.
see that who the Redeemer is from amongst his people will come to who? To Zion. What does Zion represent? To his people. And it
Mm-hmm.
continues on unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob. So there's an elect of the elect, because not all of them will turn from that transgression, unfortunately, right? So some of us have to be reborn into the kingdom, but that's Lord willing, we not of that number, right? Because I want to see it and its fullness from the beginning, right? If it be his will, right? So I'm gonna try to turn from transgression. So it's letting you know, to get redeemed, you have to stop sinning, right? So you have these Christians in front of us weekly talking about repent, 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 but they also tell you don't have to keep the laws. It doesn't make sense, right? I almost lose my mind when I see that damn sign every week. It just bothers me, right? But let's see how this continues on through the scriptures, right? And how clear it is. Go to Hebrews 9 and 15.
I got you. This is Hebrews 9 and 15. All right. And for this cause, he is the mediator. You want me to could I start at 14 actually?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. This is Hebrews chapter 9, starting at 14. How much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from the dead works to serve the living God? And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which were called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance.
Right. So again, we can see that this mediator, right, that for his death, which was like we already read, for his people, was for the redemption of those that were under the first testament. We're just killing the point at this point, right? Showing that those transgressions under the first testament, who was under the first testament? The Israelites, right?
The Israelites,
It's just plain and simple at this point. It's really overkill. So it says that they might receive the promises. Who's going to receive the promises? The Israelites, right?
The
Of
Israelites.
eternal inheritance. It's just like it's literally telling you in the just continuation of it, right? And we love to go to Romans 9, right? We know who those promises are for.
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
we man, this is like lobbing it up and just throwing it behind my back, dunking it, throwing it out, and then giving it back to you so you can get some more points again, and then just doing just extra at this point, right? We just
windmills, and we having
windmill,
fun,
right? This is like what's it like the Monstars, right? We just having fun at this point. We going crazy, right? But I got like a few more and I'm gonna be done. Let's go to Galatians 4 and 4 through 5.
This is Galatians 4 and 4. But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law, right, to redeem to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons.
Con. Right. It's just at this point, I don't understand how you see it, right? I just don't understand it.
It's
Like
a
how
hitter.
can it's a hitter, bro. Like
It's a hitter.
they think Galatians is like our worst enemy or something. Nah, bro. We gonna show that these Israelites or these people here are Israelites, right? It's simple. We know who that redemption is for at this point, right? If you don't, there's no way you watch that video. There's no way you watch this video. There's no way.
Man, in those two verses, you just killed the virgin birth and replacement theology in just two verses.
Man, just all of that. Just, right. So let's see here. Let's see. Let's go. I've got a few more, right? Let's go into a little bit more of deliverance. I got 3 more verses. I'm gonna read this one right here. Isaiah 63. I'm gonna read 1 through 6. Grab for me Daniel 7 and 21. Appreciate it, the water. I'm gonna go ahead and read this in Isaiah 63 real quick. So who is that cometh from Edom? This man keeps coming up quite a bit here when we're talking about the deliverance of our people, right? With dyed garments from Basra, this that is glorious in his apparel, travailing in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments. I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance, right? The day of the Lord, right? As some might say, the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my what? My redeemed is come. And I looked, right? Here's the key right here. And there was none to help. Who do you see that there's none to help on this earth?
Reporters this afternoon after the passage of a House bill codifying the definition of anti-Semitism, which sailed through the House last night with overwhelming bipartisan support. The bill relies on a definition of anti-Semitism established by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
Rare moment of bipartisanship in Washington yesterday. The president signed legislation that aims to combat the recent rise in hate crimes, particularly against Asian Americans. The bill got overwhelming support from both chambers of Congress. The president called hatred and racism the ugly poison that has long haunted our nation.
Man,
right? That don't have no backup, no country to just really be like, nah, leave those people alone or we're going to war, right? That didn't happen for us. And I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore, mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury, it upheld me. And I would tread down the people in mine anger and make them drunk in my fury, and I would bring down their strength to the earth, right? That's the same thing we read about in Obadiah about no matter how high they build up, they're going to be brought down low again, right? Doesn't matter how much they build up. And then go ahead and read that Daniel 7 and 21.
This is Daniel 7 and 21. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them.
Right, keep going.
Until the Ancient of Days came, and the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom.
Right. So as you can see, and you read this, and also in Daniel 2, that this kingdom that they're going to possess and take over is going to be the everlasting kingdom that's going to come for the Israelites, right? That's who those saints are, right? And that's talking about when the Most High sends his son, and judgment was given to who? To the saints, right? So he's going to even use us to be a part of that judgment on these nations, right? They have to serve out their punishment, and we're going to be the battle axes and of war for the Most High, and we're going to have that judgment on them, right? The same way he used other nations to punish us is the same way, right? Like God works in a way that is what you can pick up on is in a continuous manner, right? It's not something new under the sun. The same way he used them to punish us, he's going to use us to then finally punish them and put those curses on them. Once he sends his son to finally redeem us once we come back and keep these commandments. I'm gonna read this last one and call it a day, right?
Okay.
Oops, 30. Jeremiah 30. There we go. All right, I'm gonna read 10 through 18. Therefore, fear not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar. Remember, we're scattered everywhere, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return and shall be in rest and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to do what? To save thee or redeem thee, though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure and will not leave thee altogether unpunished, right? Because he has a certain relationship with us. For thus saith the Lord, thy bruise is incurable and thy wound is grievous, right? Who's, at the time of Christ coming back, whose bruise do you see incurable on this earth?
So I'm still very much so thinking about the Buffalo shooting last Saturday, but most importantly, I'm thinking about the victims. I'm thinking about how the majority of them were over the age of 50 years old. I'm thinking a lot about Miss Ruth Whitfield. I'm thinking about how she was 86 years old, which means she was born in or around 1936, which means that all of her childhood, all of her adolescence, all of her young adulthood was during Jim Crow, during segregation. She was 18 and the Civil Rights Act hadn't even been signed. The stories that this woman could probably tell. She endured all of that. She endured a pandemic in her 80s just to be gunned down doing something as simple as shopping at a grocery store on a Saturday afternoon. This country continuously fails Black people and will continue to do so.
Right? Who are these people that suffer these curses that have none to help them, right? So it says, there is none to plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines. All thy lovers, which will be read in Ezekiel 16, have forgotten thee. They seek thee not. For I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things to you. So he's telling you why he did this. It's simple. Therefore, but he said, even after saying that, he said, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. For I restore health unto thee, and I will heal of thy wounds, saith the Lord, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. And lastly, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places, and the city shall be built upon her heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. So we see that ultimately, just to come back to the point, right? This is the redemption of Israel, right? Us coming back to our land after we repent, after we've gone through these curses, and us, having our city built back up, right? And those curses, as you can see, will go on to other nations. There's no ifs or buts about it. That's what was already declared, because as it says, right, thus saith the Lord, right? And you're not fighting with us at this point, you're fighting with God. And with that, I yield.
All praises. Right. Let me grab a few verses before we clock it out. Could you grab for me Deuteronomy 29 and 29?
All right, got you. 29. Got you. I'll read it for you. This is Deuteronomy 29 and verse 29. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law.
Con. And so everybody else might, the other nations might see this information and they're like, man, these people, they're the worst. You know, they're black. There's black on black violence, and they'll try to use all these excuses as to why we can't be God's chosen people, right? Disregarding the curses, disregarding everything that we brought out in this lesson, right? And they'll continue to go with the bywords that have been put upon us, right? Thug, pimp, real nigga, RN, like any of these YN, young nigga, like any of these sayings and these things to try to prove that we're not special, right? They'll mock us, or we was kings, right? They'll mock us and they'll do all of these things, right, to try to prove that this isn't us, right? But the secret things belong to Yahweh, right? Those things that were revealed belong unto us and our children, right? So we have to listen and we have to learn with the Spirit, right? So we can adhere to this word so that we may be delivered, right? And that's why in the word it says to separate thyself from our enemies and take heed of our friends, right? And now is that time, and it's detrimental for our people, right, to take heed to that, right, and to separate ourselves from our enemies and start loving each other and start following these laws. Could you grab for me Wisdom of Solomon 5:2?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up real quick. Oh yeah, I love this passage right here. So this is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse 2. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for.
Right, because they're gonna see us and they're gonna see us being saved and be like, man, these people that were nothing, these people that were locked in prison houses, these blacks and Mexicans and Native Americans, right? We were killing in the streets, and then picking apart their past to make it seem like they were deserve to be killed, right? These people that didn't excel and were held back, were great football players, basketball players. Like these are God's actual people, right? The strangeness of our salvation, right? They're gonna look with terrible fear and say, these people this whole time have been God's people, and we have been doing them dirty. Right. We have been oppressing them. We have been killing them. We have been raping, robbing, and committing genocide. Wherever we find them, we destroy them. Whenever they try to pick themselves up, we're there to bomb them, to burn down their houses, to burn down their towns. Right. Like with Black Wall Street. All right. They're going to be amazed by the strangeness of it because we are what they don't expect. Right. Surely their fathers have inherited lies, and all these inherited lies, right, is what's going to lead to the astonishment when they see that we are the God's chosen and God's real people, right? And with that, I yield.
On all praises.
Slakia, real quick. I was running some numbers. Speaking of being robbed and spoiled. So let's see.
You want to share your screen?
Nah, it's fine. I got to put it up on my phone. You don't need to share it. It's fine. But so whenever the Civil War happened, right, and black people got freed, they said they'd give you 40 acres and a mule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today's money, I just Googled it, so I don't got exact numbers. It said about $680 million is how much that would be in today's money.
Man,
bro, talking about being robbed. If you look like how much, okay, so if you like when the Holocaust happened, right? They destroyed those people, right? Whenever the U.S. and all them came in and like fought for them, freedom and stuff like that, they made their government and stuff give them people money and stuff, right? They gave them. I think it said them personally, like they gave, I believe, the Jewish people like 86 million plus other nations gave them money and stuff like that, right? So whenever we were taken from Africa, we were robbed, destroyed, taken as slaves. To reimburse that, there would be money right there. And then on top of that, when we went into the fought for in the Civil War, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. All that money collectively, like I'm looking up the top nations in the world that is the U.S. owes money to. Japan is at number 1 with $1.1 trillion. China's number 2 with 768 million. The UK is number 3 with 765 billion. That's a million or billion for China.
I think you said million. That's billion.
Okay, my bad. Billion. Number 4 is Luxembourg, I believe they say that, with 424 billion. Just the money we would have gotten from the 40 acres and a mule would have put us at number 4 for the most money owed by the U.S. That's not including the value of all the hundreds of millions of lives that were killed just being brought over here in slavery, and then you and your kids being enslaved generation after generation after generation. The value of all that, we were robbed for literally. We would be above Japan. The U.S. would owe us more than every other nation.
Oh yeah, now you add that up. You add that up.
Crazy,
I'm adding pain and suffering on top of that.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Like I'm adding interest, right?
Like you talking about great grandparent, great grandparent in slavery, bro. Like you owe so much money, it's ridiculous. And then like on top of that, whenever you like, if you ever talk to somebody and they say, and you talk about like police brutality and cops killing other black people and Hispanic people, and they say like, well, black people kill each other all the time. The fact of them saying that, it's not even comparison, bro. The government has killed hundreds of millions of our people, and you're talking about one black person killed somebody else, and like literally talking about police brutality is literally like just the icing on the cake for how many people the government has killed.
Man,
it's like you in a basketball game and you up by like 100. The game's not even close, and you like, let me just go dunk on somebody. That's what the police are doing, bro. It's just like, let me just go get one more. Just fun of it. Just fuck it, bro. Let me just get one more.
Man, going into that last precept Taz just brought out, man. Who else is gonna have that strangeness of salvation, right? If those people are saved right now, right, the whole world thinks that they're the people. No one is gonna look at that as strange. That alone is a cut. Man, with that, man, we appreciate y'all tuning in. It's been a long stream, very edifying, Lord willing. Hope to see y'all, come back for more of these. We're gonna have more street teaching coming out as always, right? And if it be on your heart, keep liking and sharing, comment on the videos, engage with us, right? And just support the ministry in any way that you can. With that, I want to say, shalom and appreciate y'all.
So,
hey, Yabaraka, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahawashi, Kwam Yasharala.
Kwam Yasharala.
PTE, Genesis, PTE, and I'm the priest. PTE, Big G. PTE, Big G, and I'm the priest. I'm about to feast. PTE, Big G. And I'm the priest, I'm about to feast. If you not 12 tribes, then I'm burning your village. Gentiles not concerning your feelings. Fake friends unconfirming your realness. Flow sick like a terminal illness. Edomites gotta die. They still believing that they can be saved. Demons trying to box you, Yahawashi, but I'm taking this fade. Wanna go to war, get with Genesis. Hit the email before the song finishes. Smashing on all of my nemesis. Grown men in the truth, soft like a feminist. You should ride the mechanical bull. License to handle the tool. On fire, my candle is full. I don't do tyrannical rule. My flow, high flammable fuel. Look.